think that you would believe that I could answer them. Now this is a Q&A, ladies and gentlemen. Now what does that mean? Because as I look at all of these, I would think it was necessary to give you a lecture on each one. I can't do that. So you're going to find this inadequate for two reasons. One, that we can't deal with all the questions, although I'm collecting questions to write a book about questions, so there won't be lots. But secondly, I can only give you little impulses, the way I would begin to think about some of these questions. The real work is for you to do, and that's exciting work. So realize that what we're about to embark on is an inadequate exercise, and you will rapidly learn how little I know. So with that understanding, we will start. And we will start with this. So God created Henry Ford and so forth and so forth. Where does it end? What created God? Are we simply to believe He is eternal? Now, this question actually appears in Stephen Hawking's book. It came from Professor Peter Singer when I debated him in Australia. It came from Richard Dawkins, and it's also in the Austrian Profil magazine. The argument is this. If you believe that God created the universe, surely that's ridiculous, because it doesn't explain anything, because you're going to have to ask who created God. Who created the Creator? And then you're going to have to ask who created the Creator, and so on. Ad absurdum, so let's forget God and go back to football. Now, I just want to analyze that question because, interestingly enough, I find it coming up a lot now in schools where people have learned it from Richard Dawkins. It's a matter of logical analysis, I think, to understand it. It's an important question, actually. Who or what created X? What does that question mean? More importantly, what does it assume? What created X, or who created X? That assumes, before you start, that X was created. Philosophers have a name for that kind of question. They call it a complex question because it hides assumptions. So if you ask who created the Creator, you're immediately saying the Creator was created. But I've never met a monotheist who believes that the Creator was created. Because the claim in the Bible is the Creator is eternal. He was never created. So to ask the question, who or what created the Creator, is meaningless because it assumes what isn't the case in the first place. That's point number one. Point number two is this. When Richard Dawkins in the debate mentioned this to me, I said, okay, you think it's a meaningful question? Well, it is for a created God. So let me go around the other way. You believe that the universe created you. So let me ask you your question. Who created your Creator? I'm still waiting for the answer. The third point to be made is this. The questions do not go back forever on either side. I have colleagues that say, for us, the universe, the multiverse, is a brute fact. That's where we stop. As a Christian, I stop the questioning with God. You see, what this is about philosophically is the existence and nature of ultimate reality. And the question is not, is there an ultimate reality? The question is, which reality is ultimate? And the answer to that must at the end rest on evidence. Does it make more sense, for instance, to believe that mass energy is the ultimate reality? Or an intelligent God is the ultimate reality? Well, I believe the intelligent God makes more sense because assuming that mass energy is the ultimate reality has all the problems inherent in it which I've been trying to explain to you all evening. It leads to absurdity, it leads to a denial of rationality, and so on. But I would emphasize here is each of us makes our own decision on the basis of the available evidence. There is no mathematical proof. Just as, well, let me tell you about my wife. I've been married to her for 45 years, but I couldn't prove to you mathematically that she loves me. I'd stake my life on it. There are different kinds of evidence than mathematical, you see. And it's good to remember that analogy because, and this is beside the point here, God, ladies and gentlemen, is not a theory, he's a person. Tell us about Aunt Matilda, please. Well, my Aunt Matilda, who is non-existent, and a figment of my imagination, has become famous. And Aunt Matilda is an analogy that I use in order to explain the limits of science. And I imagine, here's Aunt Matilda, and she's baked a beautiful cake. And she sets it on the table there. And you are the Nobel Prize winners of this year. So I ask you to, I'm the MC, I ask you to analyze this cake, and the chemists and the biochemists and the physicists, no mathematicians, because there's no Nobel Prize for mathematics. Never mind. Analyze this cake. And we've got a wonderful collection of analyses. And then I have a final question. I say, ladies and gentlemen, tell me why she made it. And she starts to smile. Of course, she knows why she made it. Physicists, why did she make it? Well, it's made of. Not what it's made of. Why did she make it? Physics cannot tell me, nor can chemistry, and so on. In fact, you will never know unless she reveals it to you. Now here's the interesting thing. If she reveals it to you, does that shut your mind down and your rationality? Of course not. When she reveals it to you, you will use your mind to see if her revelation makes sense. And that, incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, explains why I do not think revelation as a concept, God's revelation at the higher level, contradicts rationality. Of course it doesn't. What I am claiming is there's more than one source of information. We have, well, Roger Bacon, the father of modern science, talked about God's two books, the book of science and the book of nature, and the book of God's word. You use your reason on both. You don't shut your reason off. Of course not. So that's what Aunt Matilda is all about. Well, there are two here. Why do very intelligent people reject God? Actually, we shouldn't laugh at this. And I mean that seriously. Many of my friends reject God because of the suffering in this world and because of their experience of it. And if you've stood in Auschwitz, as I have many times, you will understand why some people reject God. I have every sympathy, ladies and gentlemen, with people who find it very difficult to believe in God because of that human experience. And because that is a very personal thing to answer, I'm going to leave it for a while, because it will skew our discussion. It's not the main point of our talk tonight, but I will come back to it, and will you gentlemen remind me of it. There are all kinds of reasons for rejecting God. Arguments, personal experiences, and so on. But there's a related question, Kate, which I will address now. Why don't your atheist friends change their minds in spite of the evidence? I'm very interested that the questioner knows that they don't change their minds. But they do. I get dozens of emails all the time from people who've shifted from atheism to Christianity. Sometimes I'm delighted to say, even through watching my debates with Dawkins and these other people, of course you can change your mind. You see, let me put it this way. People meet me and they hear I'm from Northern Ireland and they say, oh, well, of course he believes in God. They all believe in God. And they fight about it. You know. And when I got to Cambridge because that was one of my biggest questions, and in fact I was asked it. In the first week, a student said to me, do you believe in God? And I said, oh, sorry, I should never have asked you that question. You're Irish, and a whole lot of you believe in God, and you fight about it and kill each other. Of course, I'd heard that before, but it changed my life. I learned German and I learned Russian. You know why? Well, mainly so that I could go and talk to see what systematic atheism did to cultures. I spent my whole life doing it. During the Cold War, I was many times per year talking to people. And after the wall fell, many visits to Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and so on. Talking to people. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Because I want to know. And I discovered that one of the ways to learn is to expose your belief to people who don't share it. And the relationship to this question is, I've seen many people change their minds. In various directions, of course. Of course it's possible to change your worldview. That's one of the exciting things about being a university student. You get a chance to learn and to feed in. Every one of us in this room tonight has a worldview. And it's usually one of three possibilities, just those. Either you are an atheist, you believe there's no God, or you believe there is a God, or you're a pantheist who believes that God exists but is equal to the universe, or you're a skeptic, and you might be a skeptic in any one of those three. That's, roughly speaking, very crudely, the range of possibilities. And it's important for us to ask the question, why do we hold our worldview? So I just think the questioner here is making a false assumption. Gentlemen, any more that you have to say?